You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are continuing our women's hockey coverage here in the offseason at Locked On NHL. And so the Women's Hockey Spotlight is welcoming Allie Munroe of PWHL Toronto. Allie, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, enjoying summer and enjoying life, just having fun right now.
Hey, that's what we love to hear. I'm sure you're probably sitting pretty too now because you just re-upped with Toronto. I got a 2-year deal. Let's talk about it. Let's first talk about the deal. You know, what made this the right fit for you at this point in your career?
I loved Toronto last season. The group and the staff was incredible. We had such a good season. I mean, it didn't end the way we wanted to, but I just see the potential in the group. So it was the easiest decision ever to sign for 2 years. Some stability is always nice, and I just love the city. I love the fans. Like I said, the easiest decision ever.
I love it. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about stability and how things have certainly changed for you in the last handful of seasons. But let's first talk about PWHL Toronto. You kind of alluded to it. Certainly didn't end the way you wanted. But let's talk about the start of the season because, you know, here at Locked On NHL, when we do our Women's Hockey Spotlight, we were kind of noticing that it was a little bit choppy at the beginning. But I remember being in Toronto for NHL All-Star Weekend and got a chance to chat with Sarah Nurse, and y'all had a game that weekend as well. And I was like, come on, Sarah, what's the skinny? What's the deal here? She's like, don't worry about it. Basically, that was in summary, she was like, don't worry about it. And I was like, all right, if Sarah says don't worry about it, I'm not worried then.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of how we rolled with it. I mean, the start was disappointing, but I honestly think it was Nursey that said it. She was like, but the vibes were still so high. Like we were losing, but the vibes were still there, and we believed in each other the whole way. And we kind of made one of a turnaround game a must-win game, and we won it. And then we didn't stop winning for a while there. So it got a little low for a little, but we didn't stop believing in each other, and we got through it.
Yeah,
Cool.
That's pretty powerful. I mean, it
Yeah.
seemed that way. Like I said, I was like, I don't know. On paper, we were expecting something different, and it wasn't coming together out the gate. But when Nursey was just like, yeah, don't worry about it. I was like, and she said it not like she wasn't mad that I asked the question.
Yeah.
She was just like, no, we're good. Don't worry about it. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
That was pretty much it, honestly. Like, yeah, if Nursey says don't worry about it, I'm not worrying about it.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, who am I? You know, I mean, the talking head that is supposed to do this stuff. But I was like, all right, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
But I mean, talk about the vibes because I mean, Sarah Nurse is one personality. I mean, you've got Carly Jackson, Maltese, Spooner. I mean, it's just like all kinds of personalities. I feel like it would be like, you know, like a surfer house, just of like riding the wave, like good vibes, but also maybe chaotic energy at the same time. Like, what was it like in the locker room, or some folks will call it the dressing room, for PWHL Toronto?
Honestly, it was so fun. Like I had so much fun coming to the rink every day with everyone. Like we all just meshed well. Everyone respected each other so much, and was such a good teammate to each other, which I think that's what brought us so much success. But yeah, like we just had a good time at the rink, but we also pushed each other when we needed to be pushed. And I think also Troy did that really well. He knew when to push us. He knew when to bring the best out of us. But the girls were awesome. Like we have a lot of personalities, and we all just vibe together, and it was like such a fun time.
Yeah, I love that. And so you alluded to it before, you know, you kind of circled, this is a must win for us. We know that traditionally speaking in women's hockey, it's a pretty tight season. So you get a quarter of the way through and you're only, you know, you could be even single digits in hockey games. So let's talk about what it was like on the other side of that, because it's one thing to kind of find your groove. And sometimes, like you said, maybe that's when the team is losing, but there's also sometimes pressure when you find yourself winning and chasing a top spot like the Toronto team. So how, if at all, did the vibes for the team change, or what did you see as the way that the team was able to kind of weather any different kind of terrain that you experienced on the other side of that losing streak.
Yeah, I think when we went on our winning streak, we tried like not to focus on it a lot. We just took one series at a time, so every 4 games, because it's such a short season, but a long season at the same time. Not a lot of games. So we just kind of try to take it one game at a time, one series at a time, and I think that helped us a lot. Obviously, when we started to get up there, and every game media makes a bigger deal about it, and the fans and stuff, which is awesome. Like that's exactly what we want. But yeah, you kind of feel maybe that little bit of pressure. So when we lost, everyone was like, we knew we were gonna lose. It's not a big deal. But I think we look back and we were like, wow, that was a special run we went on, and we were really proud of that. But while we were in it, I don't think we were focusing on it. I think we knew every game mattered for the points in the standings, because the playoff race was, I mean, insane, right down to the last game. Like that was so cool. I thought it was awesome for women's hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely are going to talk to you about that, because not only was it a tight race, Toronto ends up on top, but there are also these different elements, right, that we've never seen in women's pro hockey before. And, some things that have been controversial within hockey overall, you didn't have to deal with some of that with the gold plan. But, I want to ask you a little bit about being able to pick your opponent, like the power of being able to do that. So let's first talk about pre-playoffs, because then we'll get to the other stuff as well. We got to talk about it. But
Yeah.
all right, so you're saying not really focused on the wins. You kind of reflect as things are being written. You're being asked about it a little bit more. But I'm very curious. To what extent, if at all, did the players kind of have a say in that? What was the conversation from among the players and with the coaching staff and front office on, like, all right, we have this power, and now what are we going to do with it?
Not much, to be honest. Like I think we all talked among, like, with all the players. But we didn't really have much of a say, to be honest. I don't think we were really worried about it. We were confident with whoever we played, and obviously, I mean, Minnesota is a great team, and maybe some people said that we picked wrong, but at the end of the day, like Boston, Minnesota, like it was gonna be a battle no matter what. So we were kind of like, whoever they pick, not a big deal. We're gonna be focusing on us. But I think it's a pretty cool rule. It didn't work out in our favor, obviously, but I think all the new rules are so fun and so cool, and gets the fans talking, gets everyone talking, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and we see this. I also cover the WNBA, which also Toronto. Like, let's go! I'm so
Yeah,
excited. It's
me
finally
too.
official. I'm so hyped up.
It'll be so cool.
The strong crossover energy is what I love. So I love
Same.
to see that. So we get this chance to see Toronto, another women's hockey team in Toronto in the playoffs. When it comes to, though, before we move on to how the series went, would, now that you've been in that, do you have any kind of change of approach or opinion when it comes to, like, having that power, or even, thinking about if you're one of the first teams eliminated, and that kind of push to win even after being eliminated, so that you can get that number one pick, which ultimately we saw happen with PWHL New York, although it was, like you said, such a tight race that there weren't really a lot of other teams
Yeah.
that were eliminated at the time. But I mean, do you think that would, in your situation, do you think it would change the approach on how you kind of tackle and are a little strategic when it comes to some of that moving forward?
Maybe, but like I think it's such a tight, like every game is so tight in our league that like it's so hard to think like that. And there's not many games, so it's like you're just honestly going, it feels like playoff hockey every game. Um, which was super cool, but it, like, obviously we got to pick our opponent. It didn't work out in our favor, but like I said, I mean, we could have played Boston, and they could have beat us, or we could have beat them. Like I think the league is so tight that in hockey, so it's such a funny game that like who you pick, it's just gonna give them motivation no matter what. So I think Minnesota kind of got the underdog mentality, as they should. I would be the same way, and
Yeah.
we just weren't able to fend them off, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
Credit to them.
Fair enough, fair enough. I think it's always interesting to ask because, and I mentioned the WNBA because I mean the storylines are wild, and we're like, whoa, like welcome here,
Yes.
but also like, where'd you come from with that? So
Yeah.
I'm always curious as you know, as players, when you're introduced to different things, if and how at all it kind of impacts how you approach the game. So I appreciate you walking us through
Yeah.
that. All right. So Minnesota, we know, spoiler alert, they win. So not just the series, but overall, what were the takeaways? Maybe just for you personally, because we haven't talked about your game too much. But I wanna ask you, since obviously, I'm sure you talked as a team, but what was that experience like for you? What is the drive and motivation now that you will be back with Toronto for next season for you?
I think obviously immediately after it was just pure disappointment. Obviously being up a couple games and then losing is disappointing, right? The reverse sweep that everyone's kind of calling it. But now looking back, it's a good learning experience. I mean, people always say you learn more when you lose, and I completely believe that. And I think it just gives us more motivation than ever for next season. We know everyone knew playoffs is going to be a grind, but not many people, like we talked a lot about it. Not many people in women's hockey has played series like that, where you have to travel back and forth and just the intensity of it. So I think our group will be prepared for next season and really a lot more hungrier than before. And obviously we wanted to win the first Walter Cup, but we didn't. But I think we're all excited for next year.
I love it. And I want to take you back a little bit because, I kind of alluded to it in the WNBA, but one of the storylines, obviously, that was sweeping you as players was just how we got here. Within a short period of time, within the context of where you yourself were playing, and then, of course, within the bigger scope and landscape of women's hockey. So, we talk about that enough on the podcast. So we're not going to get into the whole,
Hmm.
women's hockey started in, 19,
Yeah.
whatever. We're not going to do that. But I do want to ask you about making those transitions and how you approached it and what, if at all, you saw as the impact, whether that was, I don't, growth or anywhere in between. What was the impact of you and your game and having to make these adjustments on the fly so that you can continue your hockey career?
Yeah, I think I feel really grateful for my career. I mean, I went over to Sweden right after college, and I think very early on I got to learn how to be a pro. Because after college it's tough. You go from college and it's completely different. And in Sweden I got to play with a lot of older players, younger players. So I thought I was really lucky. And then to move into the PHF again, um, you know, just continue to learn how to be a professional. And then obviously, in the PWHL, like just the fan support was something I never could have imagined. Like selling out Scotiabank Arena, seeing the impact we have on the community is just, it kind of made you realize, like, okay, yes, we get to be professional hockey players, but we mean so much to so many different people, and hopefully we can make impacts on the kids, but not only kids, but older people too. Like it's just so cool this season to see that and have the city behind us. I'm not sure any other league has had that so far, so I don't know. It was a really special time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I have a few, like one or maybe two more hockey questions, and then just like some fun questions, get to know you a little bit.
Perfect.
And so, first is,
Awesome.
um, what is your approach to the off season? I think it's always interesting to hear how athletes train when they're in their off season. How much, in your case, hockey activities are you doing, or if you're not doing that in the off season, when do you usually kind of ramp up to getting maybe back on the ice?
Yeah, so our off season is so long. This like it's gonna be so long. So our trainer told us to take a month off, which has been super difficult. So I'm just starting to get into like hockey training again now. But I try to play a lot of different sports like pickleball, tennis, golf, like go fishing. I try to just enjoy the outdoors, but because I think that's just great cardio, like play spike ball, all kinds of different things. But I'll start to ramp it up, obviously. I think in August. I think the season starts in December. I'm honestly not sure. But yeah, so I'll start to really ramp it up, start skating a lot. I might get on the ice a few times this week just because I really miss it already, but try not to burn myself out. I think that's important.
Yeah. And, as we were off camera, or me, I was off camera trying to figure out the room. We talked a little bit about also, I mean, there's other hockey happening, and I always also think it's interesting to hear what an athlete's approach is. Obviously, the NHL playoffs or the NHL season was still going on when you finished. You had, ECHL, AHL, overseas as well. But the question I want to ask, especially since Toronto, as we talked about, got booted by Minnesota, did you watch the PWHL playoffs?
I watched a little bit of it, yeah. I watched the final game. It was tough to watch, to be honest. Like, it hurt not to be there. Because I think everyone was quite disappointed for a long time. So, but I threw it on for sure. Obviously, you want to support the league, and you're so interested. You played against the teams the whole year, so it was kind of tough. I'm not sure I watched it crazy intently, but I definitely watched and watched the NHL playoffs as well. I watched the game last night. I'm a hockey fan, so Maple Leafs fan, and I didn't get to watch too much of that, but hopefully next year. Yeah, so I'm just a fan of hockey, so I enjoy watching it all.
That's fair. No, I think that's fair. I think
Yeah.
competitors will know. It's like, yeah, I mean, I watched it. Was I excited? No, probably not, but I watched it.
Yeah. Gives you motivation for next season, I think.
There you go.
That's what I'm looking at as.
I love it. All right. So you talked a little bit about the off season, what that looked like for you, including how much hockey you watched, but you also threw out some sports that you dabble in the off season. So my first fun question to you is, if you could pick an athlete from any sport, any age, any gender, whatever, who do you want, sitting at ice level for PWHL Toronto home opener next season?
Ooh, I would love if Serena Williams came. I think that would be unreal.
That would be pretty sick.
It'd be so cool.
I don't know.
I love tennis too, and I think she's just the GOAT.
I feel like you've got a pretty good connection, or at least the PW does, right? With Billie Jean King there. You might have to, I don't know, make a phone call or something.
Might have to talk to her.
Yeah. Just text BJK and say, hey, when's Serena rolling through?
If I had her number, I would.
All right. So next question is, we know what athlete you want, ice level. What athlete would you love to just be able to say that you competed against in whatever sport? Like, you get to pick the sport, you get to pick the athlete. Who do you want to have video of you going head to head with?
Ooh, I mean, I think in our own sport, I think playing against Poulin was really cool. She's unreal, so I think that was really cool for me. But I think in another sport, I mean, she's retired now, but Christine Sinclair, I think that going head to head with her in a soccer game would be pretty sweet. She's so tough, such a good leader, so that'd be pretty cool moment.
And then this one's kind of fun, especially because you were obviously on the team with Spooner, and we saw what Kendall Coyne-Schofield was able to do. But I'm sure you know that in hockey, there's this idea of dad power, dad energy, right? A guy comes back from having a child, or their partner having a child, yeah. And they score a goal, and it's like, oh, that's that new dad energy. What is mom energy? Like, how would you describe it, from not only experience with your teammates, but just from having mom figures around you?
Yeah, honestly, incredible. Like, just seeing Spooner, I don't know if I can swear, but she's a complete badass. It was so inspirational to watch her. Just even be with Rory, and then all of a sudden she's going backhand toe drag top shelf the next day. Like, it's so cool, and what Coyne has done as well as a mom. Like, I think it gives everyone in the league, like, okay, you can do both. And I think that's so cool and so inspirational and something that, we haven't seen before. And I just think it's awesome. Like, I'm so proud to be her teammate and get to learn from her.
I love it. Well, Allie Munroe, thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On NHL for the Women's Hockey Spotlight and letting us into a little bit of what your offseason is going to look like. But we can't wait to see what you'll do, of course, on the ice with PWHL Toronto, which I don't know. We hear we're going to get names soon. So we'll next time we have you on, hopefully we'll have a team name and we can chop it up about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it.